She was treated like a very ordinary woman by her husband. Everyone considered her quite weak, unaware. She is the most feared mafia boss in her home country. Welcome back to Paramount Recapped. I don't have many subscribers, but your single comment is a ray of hope to motivate me. This movie kicks off with two gangsters, Bada and Bun, strolling up to the Scissor Gang's hideout. Bada's there to introduce Bun, who's eager to join their gang. They bow down to the gang leader, Yu Jean, hoping she'll let Bun in. Yu Jean may be the only woman in the gang, but she's a force to be reckoned with. Rumor has it, she's so fierce that even her own shadow hides from her. Growing up on the streets and fighting left and right, she's tough as nails. Not long after, one of her trusted guys, Mina, gets a call with some big news. Someone spotted Yu Jean's long-lost sister, Eugene. Yu Jean has been searching for her for ages. Turns out, the two were separated as kids when Eugene got adopted, while Yu Jean was left behind. They hurry to the hospital where Eugene is, and at long last, the sisters reunite, although the occasion is bittersweet, as Eugene is seriously ill. During their emotional catch-up, Eugene drops a bombshell. Her last wish is to see Yu Jean get married. Yu Jean, looking like she'd rather wrestle a bear than walk down an aisle, promises her sister that she'll make it happen in a month. She may not have a groom, but hey, how hard could it be? Spoiler, harder than she thinks. Back at the hideout, she announces her plan to get married, shocking everyone. Not exactly the romantic type. She asks if anyone in the gang wants to volunteer as her husband. The silence is louder than a thunderclap in a library. None of them are brave enough to say yes, so her right-hand man Bada takes the initiative. He and the crew head off to a marriage agency to find a groom, and to sweeten the deal, Bada calls up a woman named Sherry to give Yu and Jean a crash course in looking ladylike. Sherry wastes no time. It's facial masks, hair treatments, and a full beauty makeover. Yu and Jean, who's used to throwing punches, looks like she'd rather be fighting off 10 rival gang members than dealing with eyebrow tweezers. After the transformation, Yu and Jean is barely recognizable, in a good way though. Now more glammed up, she goes on a blind date set up by the agency. Things seem to be going fine. The groom's family even compliments her. But the conversation takes a turn when they start asking about her background. Panicked, Yu and Jean tries some of the flirtatious moves Sherry taught her. Let's just say it doesn't go well. The groom's family is so confused they cancel the date on the spot. She leaves fuming, muttering that this is why she usually handles things with fists, not fluttering eyelashes. On her way home, she runs into some trouble. A couple of thugs harass her, so she chases them down, rams their car, and takes them on with a shovel. During the scuffle, a guy named Kong Sul tries to step in and help but ends up with a brick to the head, courtesy of Yu and Jean's flying fists. He ends up in the hospital, and when Yu and Jean offers him compensation for his trouble, Sul declines, saying he was just trying to help her. She's stunned. Most people don't exactly line up to help her. Her gang members decide that maybe this guy could be the groom they're looking for. After a little digging, Bada finds out Sul is a single, well-meaning civil servant who's failed at dating more times than anyone can count. He's perfect. The gang gets creative, hiring a food stall couple to pose as Yu and Jean's parents. The big meeting with Sul and his family is set at a nice restaurant. When the parents start talking about marriage, Sul's family hesitates, saying it's too soon to jump into wedding plans. To break the ice, they leave Sul and Yu and Jean alone. Right on cue, rival gang members disguised as women ambush her in the restroom, but Yu and Jean takes them down in no time. As she's chasing them out, she runs into Sul, who's holding a bouquet. Her gang, who's been spying from behind, think he's proposing. Not exactly the camel at dinner proposal scene they were hoping for, but they'll take it. Yu and Jean's wedding plans spread far and wide, catching even her rival gang leader, Beck Sango's attention. On the big day, the White Sharks crash the party, leading to a chaotic brawl that guests hilariously mistake for entertainment. Even as gangsters nearly tumble off balconies, applause erupts like it's a live-action show. Post-ceremony, Sul is ecstatic about his new marriage, but Yu and Jean? Not so much. She avoids him at every turn, and when he tries to remove her socks later that night, she instinctively kicks him in her sleep. So much for romance. Meanwhile, the Scissor Gang's boss returns, fuming about Yu and Jean's secret marriage. At home, Sul keeps trying to win her over, but is repeatedly shut down, even after she drunkenly stumbles in one night. His persistence earns him yet another unceremonious kick off the bed. Romantic? Not even close. Elsewhere, her loyal crew, Bada and Bun, deal with trouble of their own. When four thugs approach them, Bun issues a warning, but the goons mock him. Bada tries to de-escalate with karaoke. Yes, karaoke, but the thugs aren't fans. Insults turn to fists, and Bada sends them running with a single punch. Eugene's wish for Yu and Jean to start a family must have hit a nerve, because soon after, she summoned Sherry for some baby-making tips. Sherry arrived armed with advice, though most of it went straight over Yu and Jean's head. Determined nonetheless, she decided to take matters into her own hands, quite literally. When Seoul didn't get the memo, she impatiently ripped off his clothes to kick things off. From then on, Yu and Jean became surprisingly proactive, catching Seoul off guard with her newfound enthusiasm. Let's just say the poor guy had to keep up, even in the elevator. Meanwhile, life in the gang was far from quiet. The Scissor Gang finished a new building, and to celebrate, they hit a restaurant for a meal. But of course, trouble always finds them. A White Sharks member crashed the party, looking for a fight. Yu and Jean didn't waste time and jabbed him in the head with a chopstick. Classic move. This bold act infuriated Singo, who quickly set up a meeting to settle the growing tension between their gangs. The resolution? A one-on-one duel between Yu and Jean and Nun, one of the White Sharks' toughest fighters. The day of the showdown arrived, and Yu and Jean stepped into the ring, ready to prove her mettle. The fight was intense, with both showcasing serious skills. Yu and Jean dominated at one point, cornering Nun, but instead of finishing him off, she chose to just injure his leg, a move that showed her mercy, but still sent a clear message. After the fight, Yu and Jean went to the hospital to treat her wounds and picked up a pregnancy test on a whim. When it turned out positive, she was over the moon. She rushed to tell Eugene, who was still recovering in the hospital. Eugene was thrilled, but gave her some sage advice. No more brawls, at least until the baby arrives. Sounds like Yu and Jean's wild days might finally be slowing down, or not. That evening, while still at work, Seoul got a call from Yu and Jean, letting him know she was pregnant. He was so excited he went out and got her a bouquet of flowers. But when he arrived home, he was in for a shock when he spotted a dragon tattoo on Yu and Jean's back. She admitted she was second in command of a gang, and that their marriage was only to fulfill her sister's dying wish. Not long after, Yu and Jean received some bad news about Eugene's worsening health, which made her rush to the hospital. When she got there, she found Eugene looking frail and weak, taking her last breath. The loss hit Yu and Jean hard, especially after just reconnecting with her sister. Meanwhile, Bada was planning to propose to Sherry after dating for a bit. He picked her up for a date, making her all smiles as she grabbed her bag from the bar where she worked. But outside, Bada was confronted by the same thugs he had taken down before, and this time they weren't playing nice. They stabbed him, and when Sherry came out to find him bleeding and soaked in rain, it was too late. Bada died in her arms that night. Heartbroken, Sherry called Bun to break the tragic news. Furious over Bada's death, Bun and his buddies went after the thugs responsible, but they were outnumbered and ended up getting beat up by the White Sharks. Hearing about Bada's fate, Yu and Jean was ready to go to war, even though she was pregnant. When she arrived at the rival gang's hideout, she took on their members solo. But with so many against her, it didn't take long for her to struggle, and Nun's group soon overpowered her. She pleaded with them not to hurt her stomach, but they kept going, leaving her seriously injured. Just when it looked like things couldn't get worse, the big boss showed up with some important papers Sango wanted, allowing Yu and Jean to escape. After the brawl, she was rushed to the hospital, where Seoul was crushed to see her battered and dealing with a miscarriage due to the gang's attack. Fueled by rage over what happened to Yu and Jean, Seoul made it his mission to seek revenge. That night, Seoul disguised himself as a water delivery guy and slipped into the karaoke spot where Sango and his crew were partying. He drenched them in gasoline and was ready to light them up when one of the gang members caught him off guard and ruined his plan. But feeling confident, Sango lit a cigarette, and without realizing it, one of his guys struck a match. The whole place went up in flames, allowing Seoul to make his escape. In the end, Seoul had fully embraced the gang life, gearing up to join Yu and Jean in taking down anyone who crossed them.